Please take a note of that. We'll be starting as our keynote speaker and the chief guest, Dr. Raka Arya, will be joining in a while. So, kindly give us some time. We'll be starting soon. Yes, hearty welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Raka Arya. So we formally begin with the session now. And very good morning once again, one and all present here. I extend a very warm and hearty welcome to one and all present here for the one-day International Multidisciplinary Online Conference on G20 and Multilateralism, organized by the Internal Quality Assurance Cell IQAC of Parle Tilak Vidyalaya Associations, M.L.Dahanukar College of Commerce, in collaboration with Department of Civics and Politics, University of Mumbai, India. The International Online Conference is organized with a view to bring together people from diverse fields in the research areas, academics, industries, and environment law, technology, with common values and goals. And this conference is designed to bring together several international and national personalities for this purpose of understanding the noble facets of global interrelationships. So now, to take the conference forward, I request our in-charge principal, Professor Dr. Kanchan Fulmali, whose sustained guidance remains a significant drive and a driving force to all of us, to welcome the gathering. Over to you, Kanchan ma'am.
Mute. You have to unmute yourself, Dr. Fulmali.
Thank you, Somnath. Good morning, everyone present here. Our keynote speakers for today, Professor Dr. Raka Arya, Dean Student Welfare, National Law Institute, University, Bhopal, Member Law Commission of India. Welcome you, madam. Dr. Alexei Zakharov, Research Fellow at the International Laboratory on World Order Studies. Professor Dr. Ajay Darshan Behra, Professor Academy of International Studies, Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi. Dr. Jivanthas Kotil, Assistant Professor, Indian Politics and Foreign Policy at Dublin University, Ireland. Honorable Director of our parent organization, Parle Tilak Vidyalaya Association. Vice Principal and Director of the conference, Srimati Chandana Chakravarti. Co-Director, Professor Dr. Liaquat Khan, Department of Civics and Politics, University of Mumbai. Entire organizing committee members and all the enthusiastic delegates of this international conference, which include the members of the teaching community, the research scholar, industry persons, and my colleagues. A hearty welcome to all and to this one-day online international conference on G20 and multilateralism, which is an ICSSR and ICWA proposed conference in collaboration with Department of Civics and Politics, University of Mumbai. Our college has been at our forefront in terms of pursuit of academic and extracurricular excellence and developing of research acumen amongst the budding researcher. We have a University of Mumbai recognized PhD research center with 3 research guides and intake of more than 10 research scholars. Already five students have been awarded PhD, and 3 more are into the line for submission of the research thesis. Last year, the college has successfully organized a 10-day FDP sponsored by ICSSR, WRIC, University of Mumbai, on research methodology, 2 international conferences on environmental sustainability and transition towards the new normal, which garnered huge responses even for the research papers. Our college encourages the students' performance in extracurricular activities. Our students perform wonderfully at the youth festival, intercollegiate competition of cultural activities. Our Gymkhana is also a vibrant student forum. It organizes various sports-related events. NSS, Rotaract, DLLE, and many other committees of our college also organize many community services based on activities with the great enthusiasm, with more than 6,000 students in our college. Talking about this conference, it is primarily brainchild of our esteemed former principal, Dr. D.M. Doke, who was the director of the conference, and with his unfortunate and untimely demise, things almost came to the standstill. However, as the show must go on, taking inspiration from his leadership, we continue with the conference and we consider the conference to be the tribute to his memory. Given the relevance of this topic G20 and reflecting the journey of this G20 since inception as the Finance Forum in 1999 on its emergence at a global leader in 2008, we find ourselves in a world where our issues are deeply interconnected globally. Hence, we have taken presidency under the leadership of our Prime Minister with the beautiful slogan Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So I'm glad that the team had chosen a topic of such relevance for academic deliberation. The conference has received a huge response. As always, I'm glad to announce that we have over 110 research papers on the said areas. I wish all the participants and the organizing team a huge success for this conference and many more such programs to come. All the very best, my team. Thank you very much. And welcome you, ma'am, and the sirs.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. You have indeed set the tone for conference. Now may I request our Director, Associate Professor, Ms. Chandana Chakraborty, to deliver the Director's address, who would also delve on the core of the conference.
Good morning, everybody. Namaste. It's a matter of immense joy to welcome you all here. Also, as her principal just mentioned, the conference is actually a tribute to the memory of our mentor and former principal, Dr. D.M. Doke. In the conceptual stage, he gave a shape to the entire formation of the conference and chalked out the whole plan for it. Standing up to the contemporary geopolitical situation, under Doke's guidance, we collectively navigated the intricate landscape of our shared global challenges and zeroed in on this topic of G20 and multilateralism. Special thanks are definitely due to Professor Liaquat Khan, who played a significant role in the brainstorming and had a pivotal role to play in every stage. As a former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan said, challenges are increasingly interconnected and disruptive, aptly described as problems without passports. Our world is entangled in a web of issues that transcends boundaries. Conflicts, climate change, migration, macroeconomic instability, and cyber security. These are not isolated problems. They are threads woven into the fabric of our shared existence, demanding a collective solution and innovative approaches. Multilateral reform is not merely a choice, it is a need of the hour. As the G20 presidency, India inherited the responsibility of steering collective action for restoring global economic and financial stability in the aftermath of the pandemic and many other global challenges. Our theme, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future, underscores our commitment to global interconnectedness and reflects India's pro planet approach. Rising to this call are participants from various fields of academia, namely commerce, law, humanities, science, engineering, and industry, have contributed generously, and we have received over 100 research papers and around 150 participants. We heartily thank all of you for your contribution and participation. Once again, I extend my sincere gratitude to all the dignitaries, our resource persons, for making it possible to extend their gracious presence. Wish you all of you, a highly enriching session ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. So, thank you for addressing and putting forth the concerns of this highly pertinent an issue that we've taken up. Now, as we move forward, we once again welcome all and welcome our chief guest for the session and the keynote speaker. I take the privilege of introducing our keynote speaker and chief guest, Professor Dr. Raka Arya, and she's in the Ethical Committee on Medical Research of National Institute of Research on Environmental Health, NIREH, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. She has been in the JNU court from 2013 to 2016. She has been into Family Dispute Redressal Cell, the District Legal Aid Authority, Bhopal, in 2009 to 2011. She has been in the advisory committees on gender equality and women empowerment of Department of Women and Child Development, Madhya Pradesh, since 2021, and it spends up till 2024. And vision document of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar National Law University, Sonipat, 2021 to 24, Academic Council, Vidyapit, Rajasthan, since 2022 onwards. So she has been also associated with the Department of Women and Child Development, UNICEF, Madhya Pradesh, United Nations, Women Madhya Pradesh, Women Cell, Madhya Pradesh, and RCVP, Narana Academy of Administration and Management, Bhopal. So it's a staggering resume that goes on. This is just a brief that she has shared with us, and we are deeply privileged to have you amongst us, that you would spare some time and come and share your ideas. We are indeed privileged to have you amongst us, ma'am. Hearty welcome to the conference, and over to you. I extend the session to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Somnath. I think finally the things are getting culminated to the final conclusion, because a long time were in conversation. So, Madam Kanchan Furmali, Madam Chandan Chakrabarti, Professor Liaquat Khan, and Dr. Somnath, and ladies and gentlemen. Uh, Very good morning to all of you. And I would like to just apologize to you, join you a little late because of the technical thing. And of course, my respect and obeisance to late Shri B.M. Dokesa. I'm so, I think this is my loss that I could not meet him. And this is my loss, you know. So this is, I think, and I will also like to dedicate my presentation today to him. And we know that today we are discussing something which is very vital because, as Dr. Somnath has made mention, that I have been associated, I am still associated with a lot of UN agencies which are working for women rights and all that. And we know that despite having a lot of efforts to have gender equality, still I think the gap is very huge. So it means there are certain fundamental things that we have not been either able to identify or address. So in my presentation, I would like to, of course, speak about the globe as well as India as far as gender digital divide is concerned. So this is something I request Dr. Somnath to, show the PPT that I have made. So,
Okay. Yes, ma'am. We'll be sharing. And just
yeah.
concern that I'm yet to be doctor, yet to finish my PhD. So thank
Okay.
you.
So in advance.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and yeah, we have shared it. Is it visible to you?
I hope you don't have any doubt about your getting it.
I-
So I think I can correctly like this.
Thank you in advance. And is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay.
Visible to me, and please check with others as well. It is
Yes,
visible to them. Yeah.
I hope it's visible everywhere.
Yeah. So as you can see, the title is having not only the gender digital divide we are going to understand, but we are also trying to find out that how it can, after cementing, result into the empowerment of the women. And also, I would like to clarify one thing. Constantly, something that is occurring to me is that whenever we talk in terms of gender, these days it's very coming, in my face that all the time we are referring women. This is something that I am wondering, that are we really in the right direction, or there is something amiss. So I'm leaving it to audience, and of course you all are related to academia, and all are your researchers. So perhaps the thing that is coming to my mind will also come to yours, that is it only about women, or is it about all that come under the category of gender. But again, I'll be, of course, addressing the whole issue of women there, as they have been deprived of having digital access. So that's why we will learn certain things, that what is there, because we are also going to learn one more very important thing. Like, I am connecting with you through online, and we know that the COVID-19 has come as a blessing in disguise, where we all have, mastered this art of getting connected digitally. And of course, so women should also be made equal partner into that. Yes, of course, those who have got an opportunity of education, they are the one who are connecting with it. But then there are large number of women who are still not in a position to get access to digital literacy. So, and of course, reasons are many, and this we are going to learn one by one. So if you can just move this presentation, Somnaji. So this is the one that first what we are trying to understand, that what gender digital divide is. As we do know that it will be very much understood in the light of gender inequality, because this is something that we are seeing. The factors which are responsible for gender inequality will be the one, but what it is actually, we are going to see one, that the technical thing is the gap or inequalities between man and women regarding their access to and usage of information and communication technology. The gender inequality in physical world is coming to the digital world as well, as I was talking about it. Again, when we say that what is there, why we are trying to understand it in this context, as far as the digital aspect is concerned, because we do know that this era is belongs to the communication technology. This is digital age, and we do know that access to information and communication technology has become essential part of human life. So and not only for the purpose of, like we are saying, connecting with each other. So why we are connecting? Because we pass on information. We want to exchange information with each other for the betterment, for the improvisation, and for the further growth and development. So this is the one, because we are the one lucky one who have got the education, and we are taking advantage of this particular technology. So that's why the whole objective is that we are saying to get knowledge and of course to communicate. Not all have access, as I say, that there are some who, because of their gender identity, are more marginalized as far as access to this particular digital information or literacy is concerned. So we can see the next slide, please. So we are saying that what is the status currently, that as far as the whole world is concerned. So here, of course, UNICEF report that has given a kind of statistics to us to understand that how much ground we have to cover and what is the gap all about. So they are saying that 90% jobs today have digital component. So as I said, that this is an age and era of digitization, where every action of ours, because if you see, I think we all have got limited to the mobile. Previously we have so many things which were expanded, like all activities of our life we can just conduct through a very small gadget called mobile in our hand. And we don't have to go to bank, we don't have to stand in queue, we don't have to do lot many things which were very hectic and very harassing in the past, and very easily we can manage a lot of things. So that's why they are saying that 90% not only jobs, but I think our lives things are being covered by the digital thing. Now, in which they are saying that the 41% women have access to internet component, and in comparison to 53% men. And as far as statistics is concerned, let me tell you, it is flexible because it is changing. And I think when we try to understand it now, it may be something very different. So they are saying International Telecommunication Union reports that more than 50% women in the world are offline. So it means we can understand that women who itself are half of the population, and half of them are not having access to the digital literacy. Then GSMA is also giving some number, that is 3 to 9 million women in developing countries do not own mobile phones, and 8% women globally has less likely to own or mobile phone than men. Then in South Asia, that is Indian subcontinent specifically, 23% and 13% gap is there as far as mobile ownership is concerned, and of course the usage of it is concerned. So this is the status as far as the world is concerned. As I told you, it may be flexible. So can I see the next slide, please? Now, I would just like to say, because as I say that now we do understand the situation, specifically when I say that South Asia and Africa, because it is together, it makes a huge chunk of the deprivation or the kind of gap that we are talking about in the area of digital literacy. Now, as I discussed with you that as far as idea of why it is there, the gender digital divide, what is the reason? First, as we do know, generally whenever we discuss about anything, poverty comes as a very huge or big factor responsible for a lot many problems we face as human beings. Because what poverty ends up into, and that is the affordability, that we, first of all, we can't afford the thing that we have to use. It could be anything, like we can say education or housing or a number of activities that we are talking about, a person will not be in a position to afford. Now, as I say, the direct outcome here for our purposes is lack of education. So one reason could be poverty, that may be also further leading not to go to school, and another is the low enrollment and enrollment of women. Because we do see that in India, when we talk about, there is a thing of great concern, and that is dropout rate, okay, of women, that till +2 they will be getting education, but after +2 we have seen a kind of unexplained dropout rate, which is a matter of great concern. Because when we go to the literacy of women in India, then it comes out to be, lower in comparison to men. 65% and 75%, then there is a 10% gap. So this is something, why is it there? So one has to really examine the fact that why this is there. Then again, they say gender inequality due to inherent socio-cultural norms and biases. So again, as we say that, yes, of course, this is the one at the root cause, that how culture sees its women, how they consider their status in society, whether they are at par with men, and they should be allowed to have the same opportunities as given to the men, or there should be something that is called that private public sphere divide, where after a particular age a woman has to be away from the public domain. Like I think scenario is changing now in India, but there have been a time period when it was being said कि आप कितना भी पढ़ लो, बाद में तो आपको जो रसोई ही संभालना है ना. This is what is being said, that howsoever you study, चाहे BA करो, MA करो, whatever, and BSc, MSc, whatever you do, but ultimately you have to look after the household thing. So this is something that is changing now. Women are also coming forward, but we do know it is not that easy, because still, in many society, not only in India, even in other parts of the world, women are being considered predominantly as the we can say protector and caretaker of the household. And as I say, it is not in India. In many parts of the world, it is the one that women are being considered important part of the taking care of family and all these things. So these are the one which, of course, proves to be a kind of hampering factor for women to come out. And another thing is there, that when culture supports that kind of thing, then it is very difficult for women to actually fight against it, because they do not have any social support. The support structures are not there, that's why. Because even when we look at a lot of things, even if I talk about law, is still there are so many women rights which are looked from the perspective of this private sphere domain. Like if I say something about from that particular perspective, uh, the man is still responsible for taking care of wife. So this is something, when we talk about it, means this is not placed at par, because we are not saying that equally wife is also responsible to take care of husband, because we know that wife is economically dependent on husband. So this is something that is still not changed, and it is still a point of mood for us, of course, because we are from the law background. So it's a point for us to take care of all these issues, that the whole thing should change now. So that's why we can say that largely cultural factors and society and social structuring is very much responsible for maintaining this gender inequality, which I am talking in terms of negative aspect. Because we have learned that even Aristotle, like philosophers, have said that all are not born equal. So this is something, and of course he also talks about equality amongst equal, which is very much part of the Constitution of India, equality before law part, that is the fundamental right, for Article 14. It is also taking that reasoning. So all these things are very much present and inherent in the systems and laws. And law also come from society. So when we talk about that, so what aspect which is we are talking about? So inequality, which makes the status of women a little disadvantageous in comparison to man, that we are talking about. Now another is glass ceiling, as you can understand, that another thing, that is the one where they are not, again in the professional field also, they are not treated at par with man. So because something which is coming from social norms and social milieu, we affects our thought process, and we also behave like the thought process that we are receiving from the process of socialization. Another issue that is proving to be a kind of hurdle for us is online safety issue. As we do know that this is a world which is very uncertain world. Many a time we can't see people, but we are interacting with them, and then which is resulting in many a time a lot of things. As far as India is concerned, I can talk about that women, are very what we should say, uneasy about using the internet or mobile for these purposes, because we do know that cyber stalking and voyeurism, all these kind of things are very much there as far as online thing is concerned. And not only that, we know that cheating, frauds, and all those kind of things may also result, about which women are a little uncomfortable about that. So for them, if they can't see someone already, they are a little bit uncertain about things. But then when it goes to a world that they can't see, they can't connect with, they are more uncomfortable about that. So of course we will see that what is being done to rectify such situation and to give them confidence. So can we move to the next slide, please? So again, we are saying, so what could be the solutions? So these are the thing we know that, and many a time we hear about, the problems, that what are the issues which are resulting into it. So what is the way out? Because if we don't have that, then I think the discussion is half done. So first of all, we are just expecting some intervention from the government. And the government is the one, because we do know that they have lot of power to correct things, because government also the one which has a social connect. In all countries they have this, and of course they can send a larger message. So there should be a policy regarding things which gives them confidence, because we do know that there have been national empowerment policy for women that came earlier, and now in 2016 again there was a policy which has again reviewed and revised certain points which were there in 2001. So after 15 years they have revised, because we do know that there have been millennium development goals also that UN has declared, in which of course gender equality was one of the major agenda. But UN has really felt quite disappointed as far as countries fulfilling their commitment regarding this particular goal was concerned. And they expected that after this particular 2015 thing, like 2015 to 2030, now there is an expectation on part of UN as well, that perhaps the gender inequality which is creating a disadvantageous situation will be abolished by 2030. And this is something India too has a commitment, and G20 countries, of course, being member of United Nations, they are also. So what this policy should be, and what should be the nature of this policy? So we are saying that it could be a kind of coordinated and complementary action to control gender exclusion and close gender divide, especially in G20 countries, because here we are discussing about them. So there has been a focus about that. The policy must be like that, that actually results into this. And the policy should have more gender responsive perspective. It should raise gender awareness and to tackle gender stereotypes. As I told you, that every time it is about that, as I say, women, the moment we say women, man, immediately there is a kind of fragmentation and understanding that this is man's role and this is woman's role. Generally, we try to, understand that, but we know that professional field or the public sphere is something where these identities have to be merged together. Now they're saying, of course, this policy should be able to enable enhanced, safer, and more affordable access to digital tool, which is, I said, that it has to address women concern that when they are feeling a little uncertain about this, and especially we know the young girls are on receiving end. Again, to foster strong cooperation and across stakeholders, so whosoever are there, it must be in a position to actually bring them on the same platform, so we can have a kind of effective outcome. Then again, they say digital technology may provide new opportunities. As I told you, that now what is being happening, that it is being a tool to train, if we want to train women, it can also be a method and mechanism. It can also be proven to be a platform where the women entrepreneurs, they can also deal with their business, they can also do business. So they can get education, they can do business, they can do a lot of things as far as this digital platform is concerned, because they can work from home without going out into the public sphere, which generally family also do not approve, as I said, and they also feel a little edgy about that. Again, another thing that is could be the tool of solution, that is the laws to regulate digital world to address issue of online safety. So of course we know that without law, because policy leads to making of laws, so there has to be a policy. So what all this policy should have, and finally law should come into picture to make it more effective and binding and mandatory in nature. Please show the next slide. Again, we are saying, so what will happen, what it will achieve, all these things that we are trying to understand here, that when we take these steps. So they say that as far as the internet, digital platforms and mobile phones, in addition to digital financial services and online or video based skill development lessons, will enhance income. So this is also something, as I told you, that it can give the whole platform or the mechanism can give them training as the first step. And also, they can do something. If they are already trained and skilled, it can enhance their income. Then it can also increase employment opportunities for women. Then again, they say increases access to knowledge and information of different kinds to open new horizon for women. So this is something, as I said, that of course, as we all are connecting to this digital tool, this is the one that we are talking about. It is going to enable women manifold. So all these issues, things make easy. Like if we say video based skill development, it is something that does not need any kind of uh, literacy, in the sense that they have to know how to write and how to read and all that. So video lessons are very, very helpful as far as women who are not literate, even they can be empowered in this manner. Show the next slide, please. Now we just examine something, because we do know that G20 has been, headed, or rather the leadership was with India. So what India itself has in store, as far as the digital gender divide statistics is concerned. So here I'm giving you, of course, with help of some particular agencies who have done some research work, and which, of course, number of other agencies have quoted. So with the help of that, I'm giving you some statistics. That is, they are saying that Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, when it has conducted an internet, this particular survey, as you can see, internet usage and mobile ownership in India between 2019 and 2021. So you can see that this period is important. This is the time period when, of course, for I think 1.5 years, we all were only connected through online. And all the messages of life-saving messages were coming through this. We do know that there was an app that was introduced by the government of India to deal with the COVID-19 situation, because it was being said that you have to download Arogya Setu app, so you can have all the information notification on it. And then, of course, the vaccination point, it was also that through digital mechanism, everything was conducted as far as the this thing was concerned. So it was the time period when digitization increased, because the situation was like that, because there was a kind of human disconnect, that we were not able to connect with each other, and situation was very life threatening. Now again, NFHS, that is National Family Health Survey 5, has given a kind of very dismal data as far as India is concerned. 1 out of 3 women in India had ever used internet, as compared to half the men, and that is 57%. They have given a kind of statistics. The study by Indian Human Development Survey also shown clear association that between mobile phone ownership and women empowerment, as well as greater involvement of women in decision making. So this we do know, as I told you, that the word that was used by Prime Minister was "Aapda mein avsar." So what has happened, that because everyone has to be connected through internet and this. So that was the period when India has taken a conscious decision to go into this field, to increase the horizon and canvas for digitization, and of course bring women also on board, because inclusivity is something that has been a major aspect of the G20 under current leadership. Can we go to the next slide, please? Then again, what India is doing, or rather what India can do to bridge this particular gap, as we can see. So, of course, we do see that the whole idea that was floated was women-led development. That was the commitment. And it was expected that India has a lot of scope, because India is going to be $1 trillion digital economy by 2025. And then they are saying that India currently is occupying 40% space in global digital world. As you might have noticed, when this summit was going on in September. So this that time a video was doing round, in which a German representative, when he has gone to buy something from the people who are selling it on the that card that they have. So there was this thing, Paytm and all that. So when he has went to buy that, he was quite amused by the fact that even these people, they have access to all this. And he was really amazed at all these things. So these are the things that India is currently doing as its part, being a member of G20. So, of course, as I say that COVID-19 pandemic has proven to be a kind of opportunity for India to take advantage of this particular technology. In 2022, the 49 billion digital transaction took place, were largely done by the frontline workers on their tablets and smartphone to feed data into management information system, and for virtual implementation of welfare schemes like Janni Suraksha Yojana and Jandhan Yojana and all that, which is, of course, the information is available to the people who might be belonging to below poverty line strata of society. So even they can receive informations, they can also conduct their transactions over the phones now. So of course for that, one has to increase the share of women. Next slide, please. Now, again, there is something that here I have written at G20, but specifically also, again, I'll be giving something that India is doing in that particular direction. To close this gender digital divide, they are making a lot of efforts to close this particular gap. So what they are saying, it focuses generally, as far as G20 agenda is concerned, it is focusing on ushering digital transformation and sustainable development through gender equality and empowerment of women, needs to be mainstreamed across the cities and towns. And of course, I have included villages into that also, so that no one is left behind in gender revolution. So when we say one family, family means all inclusive. No one is left behind. And especially on the basis of identity, nobody is left behind. All are given their fair share. Now there was a effort, endeavor that was made by a company in India, leading company, that was called as Digital Sakhi. As I told you that because women are not being sent to school, or there is a high dropout rate. So how to educate them? This is something, a big challenge, because if you see, Indian women have largest number in the world when it comes to the women population in a country. So as you can see that we have the highest population, so the 50% of women is also making it like this. So they say that this digital Sakhi method was used by this company to educate women on mobile and using the digital platform. And of course a huge effort was made, and smartphones were given to women. And on that, because we have seen when this COVID-19 was there, we all know that because we all are part of academia, online classes were a big thing that we all were supposed to conduct. Similarly, of course, those who were living in villages, for them it was doubly, problematic, because first of all, they were not having access to mobile phones. Second, the internet one also, because internet access is also not very good as far as villages are concerned. So that's why this digital Sakhi has really done a good job. Then again, another effort that government is making is Pradhan Mantri Gramin Digital Saksharta Abhiyan, in which they are going to cover 60 million household to bridge this particular gap that is there. Again, they say that National Digital Library for children and adolescents will help in narrowing digital divide and ensure equitable access to quality education and improve digital literacy level. So, of course, as India is concerned, as I say, everything will be a big challenge because of the population. The number, the people have to be addressed to is very huge. And the kind of things are there, like when we talk about, that the infrastructure thing is also not very proper, as we can see. First, they have to develop it. As I said, that first, even if you have mobile phones in your hand, you have to have internet, and then you have to have internet connectivity for that. And to cater such a huge clientele, it is, as I said, it's a big thing. And also, not only that, accessibility, affordability is also one. First is accessibility, as we do know. Second, we are saying affordability in the sense that data prices should also be such that all can afford it. Otherwise, the job will be half done if it is, not balanced in this manner. Again, they say, and when I say children and adolescents, that's why I was just talking to you, that online teaching, of course, we all are part of university, but then of course the schools were also providing that. And for a child, to go for online classes, as you know, one thing, as a behavioral thing, is a difficult thing. And second was also, as I say, that to manage this internet connectivity and accessibility part was also a big challenge. Of course, to an extent, the ground has been covered, but ground is too huge to be covered. Then again, another scheme is there, which is, especially from the angle of women, Stay Safe Online campaign by Ministry of Electronics and IT for awareness creation of the internet and social media and digital payment facilities. So as we know that you might be aware, as far as the things are concerned, when it comes to not only cities I'm talking about, I'm also talking about villages, where women, they also participate in a lot of schemes floated by the government. Self-help group, you might have heard. Through the help of the self-help group, government tries to, run lot many schemes. And these self-help groups are very important and, very significant mechanism for women especially, because they come together, and with the help of that, they not only are coming together, they are also managing banking, they are also doing saving, they are also providing lot of women power, I will say, not manpower, it is women power they are providing for realization of lot of governmental schemes that are there. As far as village is concerned, women are really playing a very, very vital role as far as the villages are concerned. So we can say that it is proving to be very important that they should have this literacy, the digital literacy must be there, but with this particular assurance that it is a safe technology for them. Because if it is not this, then of course they may not be comfortable. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So this is something that they talk about, the G2023 action plan to accelerate progress on the SDGC. So as we do know that GS, as we know that this is a commitment on part of all the member countries when we talk about as far as this issue of closing and bridging this gender digital divide is concerned. So what are they saying here when they talk about to accelerate progress? As I have made a mention of that, what happened to the Millennium Development Goal? Because then they were trying to understand what went wrong, because the kind of target UN has set in Millennium Development Goals could not be fulfilled. So there has to be something, because either you have to develop a plan where all can come together. When I say all can come together, I'm talking about countries, because it has to be a concerted effort where all will be providing all kind of support to each other. And of course, India takes a lot of lead in that these days. So we can see that what is happening in this context. So they are saying that the plan that was released in Varanasi in June, what they were trying to say from the gender's perspective, it is saying that G20 commits to promote collective, concrete, and transformative actions on digital transformation, gender equality, and empowerment of women. Further, the G20 should take actions to enhance gender equality and bridge the gender gap and ensure the full, equal, meaningful, and effective participation and leadership of women in decision making at all levels. So this is something, that's a kind of a collective effort that all have to make as far as going for the gender equality part is concerned. Now I'll say something about gender equality. As I say that gender digital divide is very much rooted in gender inequality. Now I read some statement where they have done some global survey on this gender index part. I think it was a very patronizing statement in which they say that out of 10 men, 9 men are having a very biased opinion about women. And that is of course negative, that they are having that women are not capable of doing certain things. We do not know, it could be something. So because I am a bit skeptical about the observation, because I don't know that how to take all these things, because as I say that our thought process is very much based on the social norms, the social practices, the cultural practices, so how they have been brought up. Because as I said that women education has never been an important thing. Like if they are educated, then it's all right. Because when I look at my own country, I feel very proud, because when I see that they have been political leaders, that when of course very few female leaders were there in the world, my country has a woman leader, which was very impressive woman leader, and of course has taken a lot of challenging decisions. Then I could see that a lot of women who are working at grassroots also. Apart from that, what really amazes me, because when we talk about this digital technology thing, the science education plays an important role. Because we say that science, technology, and engineering and mathematics, as you know, that it is called STEM. And STEM think that women are less exposed in comparison to other disciplines that we are talking about. So less exposure. But then again, as I say, that I can say with pride and proud that the Mars mission and Moon mission, both have been made by women scientists quite successful, and they have been, not only they have, because the women have a tendency, a good management skills they have, and as far as these exploration are concerned, they have been very low cost also. Because I'm a teacher of airspace law also, so I can tell you one thing. When there was a visitor from England at the point of time when they came to India, they said that that how you people could keep the costs so low of these operation. I say, if you want to do that, please bring women forward, because they know how to do the financial management. Even in house we do see that how the whole thing is being done. They have excellent managerial skills. So that's why I can take proud in this particular fact that yes, of course, it's being said that they are less exposed to STEM, but despite that, with less exposure, they have achieved such huge feat that we could see. We have seen women like Kalpana Chawla and all that, who have reached to another height. So these are the things that, yes, of course, but then we can say that how many of them are there. So what is needed is to increase the number. That is the one that they are talking about. That, but then for that, one has to let go the prejudices and biases. Only then I think we can head in any direction. Otherwise, what will happen? As I say, that again we will have a dismal scenario. Even in the because already we are in 2023, and how many 8 years have lapsed as far as this another the sustainable development goals have come into picture. So together, I think if I take some year like that, so 23 years effort, and still we are saying that there is these gaps are there. It is a matter of concern. So it means either the implementation part, even worldwide, has some answers to give, that what is lacking, and why we are not being able to address that. If we are saying the number is still so huge as far as the gap is concerned, so how we will close the gap? So level playing field, how we will create it? Digital literacy, how we will manage with all these things? Because commitments are being made by leaders. They are that we have seen that they have given their word. But then of course some schemes we have seen that they are coming forward to achieve this particular goal. But unless and until, I think what I feel, that we do address this gender inequality part, which of course, as I say, that from the disadvantageous this thing, then the whole idea of empowerment may not be achieved. Because meaning it will be a task half done. It is not that we can say that nothing is happening, but something is happening, but a very slow speed, or we can say the speed which is not sufficient for this particular goal to be achieved. Because how much time is left for us? 7 years is left for us. So I think in 7 years we have to achieve this, or we have to close this gender divide, especially in the area of digital one, which is very, very specialized field, and which is very important thing now. It is part of life. It is way of life now. So I think we have to see all these issues, which are very, very important. So with these words, I would like to end my presentation. And I would like to thank you for giving me patient hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you immensely, ma'am. It has been very comprehensive, the way you have covered the various areas related to women empowerment, especially in the backdrop of digitalization, the way it is moving forward. So before I move forward with the further section, I would like to take certain questions that we've received. If you may kindly extend your answers to that. Yeah, so the first question that comes here is on this. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are
Yes.
audible.
Yeah,
Okay.
audible.
Yeah. This is this digital platform really giving equal opportunity to the LGBTQ community, or the situation is the same as it was before? Though we see that there's a gradual change, it's highly gradual. So how do you look at it, the policy formulations?
Yeah, that is, initial, when I begin, I said that.
Correct.
That is something that is a point that we have to, of course, taken into consideration, that gender does not confine only to women. What we have done over the period of time to correct something, to take a corrective measure, we have focused on women. But I think now we have to move forward, because now new areas are emerging, new concerns are emerging. So we all have to take them into consideration. So policy, of course, when I say coordinated and all that kind of concerted one, so it is not only about women. It has to take all those who are part of the society, be it LGBTQ and other kind of identities which are emerging. Everyone's address, the concerns have to be addressed. This is what is expected as far as the policy is concerned and law is concerned.
Yes, Kanchan ma'am, you wanted to say something?
I have another question, ma'am. Your presentation, which I have seen, that it was really wonderful. We are really think that yes, our pleasure. You are here, and you have given given us a very nice, that the digital gender digital drive. So one question came in mind. Already you focus about the rural areas, but still I thought that gender means equality. You have to recommend it at rural areas. Don't you think it is so difficult? Because some of the villages, like if it is a Haryana or Rajasthan, or maybe even some part of Maharashtra also, I can say there is so difficult situation within the gender equality, there is an inequality, and that inequality is so bad. So how do you give here that solution for the rural areas?
Okay, ma'am. I expected this. Okay. So the thing is that we don't know that when I say about the villages part, and I already said that it's a challenging task, for the government to do that. But nothing is impossible if you set your mind on that. The thing is that number of steps have already been taken. We know that as far as reaching to every nook and corner in India is also a very expensive affair. And of course, as I say that since they have started, so it will take a lot of time also. The thing is that some steps have also been taken, because why gender inequality, or or rather I think I should reframe it, that what was actually happening as gender inequality was that first the small girls will go to fetch waters also, because water is not in their house. So what is happening, so nal se jal unhone kaha aapke ghar mein aayega. So that is something. So the young girls don't have to go to fetch water. So that's why they will be at home. So this is something that is allowing them. So these are the thing. And then again, as I say that to take those steps, which are actually deepening the gender inequality. So first, these are the steps that they are taking. And as I say that to take internet to the villages is a challenging task. As I said that merely having gadgets in hand is not going to serve the purpose if you don't have internet in that. So that's why they are just trying to do it, because we do know that it could be either LAN or it could be Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi could be easier in comparison to LAN, because we do know that then you have to lay the fiber line, which is a bit difficult, part as far as the things are concerned. So, but then, and then again, there are also other concern when we say all these mobile towers, they, emit radiation and all those kind of things. So you can't, create a kind of web which will,
Yeah, I
taking
think
all
there
necessary
is.
precautions and all that. So you have to do it. So of course, this is the one that needs to be done. But I think this is also helping that first of all, women have to be at home. That's why I said ki ek ye scheme jo, because my university is very close to villages, so I can see, and I really love to go there and work with them. So that's why I can see their predicament, in the real sense. Now it is really a big blessing for them that they can actually focus on these issues. So they are getting time for themselves, not only managing the household. The whole time is not going into the management of the household. Now they can spend some time. As I say, that thought process has to also be changed, that why women have to do this. Many a time you and I, when travel by train, we see boys are playing cricket in the field. Have we ever seen any women they are playing? Never ever we see. We always see them on some particular task. So I think this mindset
Yes.
has to be also changed, as far as
Correct.
society is concerned.
Uh-huh. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It was almost part of the question that you have taken up already. But just to extend the same question with, a question that comes, that is the digital divide is something less in the metropolitan and the rural areas. The disparity is seen. Obviously, you answered it in every possible way. But yet, if you have some more reflections to do it on, otherwise we can move forward.
Yeah, it's still that divide is wider, that we do know that, as I told you, that as far as technological, the infrastructure is still not there. That infrastructure is not there. So if it is not there, and it is of course easy to develop in cities, it is difficult to develop in villages.
Correct.
And but now these steps are being taken, but still, yes, the divide is more between the villages and the metropolitan cities. So that's why I said that when I made inclusion of village in my presentation, I said that why I'm adding it, because in that particular line they have not added. They have said towns and villages. So I said that villages. India has huge number of villages, so they should also be a point of consideration. But we do know, but steps are being taken. And why I'm saying, because many a time we know that some areas are earmarked. There are a number of issues that first they have to take care, but then they have to go in that direction. So that's why I told you this digital Sakshata Abhiyan, it is, taking all that into consideration. Some 60 million people, family, in fact, family has been taken into consideration for the purpose of digital literacy. So for that, of course, slowly steps will be taken. But yes, divide is there. Still the gap is there.
Correct. You can't dare forget villages, as even Mahatma Gandhi also said, India lives in villages,
Yes.
where root goes back to there.
True, true.
So, just a question going back to the point of what is very, very recent, and it's become of the issue of a sort of trepidation in some areas, and especially in academia, that with the structural change in that through national education policy. And how do you see, or rather bring about a harmony between NEP and the digital revolution? How do you look at it? It will bridge the gender divide. What kind of
Yes, because see, this is what we are saying, that education is the biggest tool, that can actually address these problems. But the issue is that, are they being allowed to get education? This is something, is their education has been a point of importance for the family? Because women education is not an important thing, uh, man, like I think you will also notice, not only in villages, see, mentality is in the towns also. When you see that a family which is not having very good economic base, what will they do? They will send their daughter to a very cheap school, and they will send their son to some, jiska fees structure will be very good, that so this particular divide is in the home, in the family itself. So that's why I said that mindset has to be changed fast. That why we are giving boy the opportunity that we are not giving to the girl, and we being parent are discriminating. So this discrimination is coming from family, which is the very first unit of the society. So this bias, gender bias and gender discrimination is very much rooted in the family, na? So first we have to address when a woman is not being allowed. As I say, whenever we read, as far as India is concerned, we read reports when board results come. And a +2 May, they are doing wonders. And all of a sudden, when it comes to higher education, they're dropped out. So why? Because if the economic status of the family is compromised, so women will be sacrificed. That you can discontinue with your studies, the son will study, but daughter will not study. Why? Because there is a particular perception, that she will go to other house and all. Indian mindset, we know about that. So that is there. So why she is less important? She is less important because she will not remain member of family forever. That particular family that we are talking about, she has to become member of another family. So less attention is being given to her. And that is reflecting, even if you have NEP, if you have any kind of education policy, see, unless and until they are, like we are saying, access. Now, how when we are trying to understand this access, is the girl herself is not, having the access, or family consciously is not allowing to have access? There are a number of aspects, no? That economic condition could be there, mindset could be there, that might be denying that access to the woman. Or as I say, that this particular hesitation of insecurity. Because I'll tell you one thing, that when it comes to girls' education in this country, security also is a big reason. Women's security is a very big, women's safety and security is a big, cause of concern for the parents. They don't want to send their daughter to a school which is far away. So that is something, that even if we have policy, because policy we are seeing that they are trying to bring digital literacy and digital education into that. Online teaching, online, things that they are constantly introducing. And they are, like MOOC is there. When we go for the UGC thing, they have introduced MOOCs and all that kind of thing. That, you can make online lessons and all that. But then these women will not be in a position to take advantage because they are not there. They can only get it when they are there, no? So there are mechanisms which government is making as a policy, but then women are not benefiting out of it because they are not being allowed to participate in that. So this is a huge problem for us, that this particular mindset has to change, that girl is equally important as a boy. So if unless and until we deal with this situation, this gap will not be filled. It will not be closed.
Very true, madam. Very true.
Yes, yes.
So we understand that the family, it has come from the family only.
Exactly,
Has come from the
exactly.
family.
A woman has to get some assurance, na? Because if a girl wants to see, मान लीजिए, she has finished her +2 and family is very much into that women education is good. But if she wants to go to another city, now she has to pursue some particular course which is in other city. So then there will again another hesitation.
True.
So this is number of things are there for women to get
Structural.
education and all that.
Yeah. So yes. So these are actually,
It will never.
I guess we are heading towards a very, very
Think.
gradual change
Yes,
over
definitely.
the years that we see. So yeah, as you mentioned, how we've seen a very powerful women prime minister also, and on our moon mission, Mars missions also. So yeah, things are changing, but it's highly gradual. So yes, I guess we can take the last question today as we are heading towards the closure of the first session. And so this is a little legal question, ma'am, yeah, which talks about some recent judgment given by the Honorable Delhi High Court that even if the wife is economically independent, it doesn't absolve the husband from his liability from giving maintenance to the family, and should take the burden of the family. So I guess it's a question from a disheartened male. So how do you look
Okay,
at
with,
that?
with due respect to the court, I would like to say, see, this is, I think, because the judgments do based on case-to-case basis.
Correct.
As far as law is concerned, law says, criminal procedure code, which is talking about the idea of, giving maintenance. Even that particular law says that if husband is not in the position to pay the maintenance and woman is well off, then she has to pay maintenance to husband. So it is not there. As far as law is concerned, it is talking about that. But we do not know in what light that particular judgment has come. That what was the status of men. But that is what I told you. Lot many things also puzzles me. When I say that when we talk about gender equality, we are talking about women. When it comes to gender equality, then we are saying man will pay maintenance to women. So this is also puzzling me, that when we say that our Constitution of India says Article 14, Article 15, Article 16, which is talking about the equality part, but then when it comes to application part, then we see the very conservative arrangement, and that is that men and women, they are not at par. They are having a superior or inferior, I should say, or higher or lower status as far as the thing is concerned, and man is still responsible for the well-being of the woman. So I think somewhere, that's why I said that, that's why I'm floating, and I said that I am leaving it for all of you to think about that, or rather rethink about that when we talk about gender equality, what exactly we are addressing to. This is something, because even women, like it might prove to be very scandalizing to many of you, but I will say something. Like when it comes to sexual harassment, right? If I talk from the perspective of gender equality, right? So it could be either way. When you look at the definition of sexual harassment, it says about gestures, it says about words, it says about showing something, that pornography or something. So can't a woman do it to a man? So it can be done, but then still, why we are saying that women are vulnerable? Because as I said, what is lacking here? Woman does not have any support structure. When something happens to a woman, generally we don't find defenders of that. And women are easily accused of something, that is the one that is a matter of concern, that they are still part of the vulnerable section. When the day comes, when they also raise some particular issue, or rather a man raises an issue, and she is in a position to defend herself, then it is all right. Because I'll tell you why I'm saying so. That when it comes to a rape incident, then man gets married, but a woman who has been raped will not be married. So as I say, again, it will come back to society, that social perceptions have to change about man and woman. And until and unless society, wherever it exists, because even we know in America there are number of issues, that they have equality, this thing, clubs made and all those kind of thing. So they are also fighting for equality. So this is something we cannot say that it is only the issue in India. It is also an issue across the globe. Their concerns may be different, but the issue is very much there. So I think society has to really come forward and review and revise the thought process once again. And when we say person, so person does not have any identity. Person means it could be either, like we are talking about, it could be man, woman, or third gender. This is something that we are talking about. So it is not about that. A person is a person, must be treated accordingly as the basis of the issue, not on the basis of identity. So I think that will actually resolve some of the problem that we do face in the modern period.
Yes, thank you. Very, very comprehensive. And from your right from the beginning to the introduction and the way you have handled the question answers, it summarizes the concerns that all the communities and the sections are facing. And you have definitely underscored the need of this vulnerable society. So that is what we are extremely grateful to you. So may I just propose a formal vote of thanks to you as we end towards the address. So you have focused on this women development issues, and which are primarily women-led development also, though you have given a very broad facet to this whole aspect of gender. You've also touched upon the technology aspect, which is helping women to lead the nation in various aspects. Also, the sustainable development issue through gender equality and empowerment of women. There are government campaigns which you've underscored, like Digital Sakhi, education of women through smartphone, NDL, that is National Digital Library, those campaigns, and how it should take a while to reach out to the nook and corners of the country. It's a vast country of ours. So by the time it reaches, so the success story becomes the success story of the whole world. And that's how the Group 20 nations we have come forward as a leader to showcase how we set the tone for the countries that are there. So G20 has shown how it commits to promote collective and concrete and transformative actions on this digital transformation and gender equality and the empowerment of women, and how India as a country has a tremendous role to play there. So thank you. It's a very, very enlightening session, and we are truly privileged and blessed to have you around and look forward to your association. And we'd expect that you will be with us for a while, that we move to our next resource person, who is from Moscow, Russia, Alexei Zakharov. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Privilege is mine. Thank you.
Over to you, Mansi. Please introduce our next guest, Professor Dr. Alexei Zakharov.
Yeah, thank you, Somnath sir. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, Raka Arya ma'am. It was so nice to listen to you. Going to our next speaker, that is Dr. Alexei Zakharov. So Dr. Alexei Zakharov is a visiting fellow with the Strategic Studies program at Observer Research Foundation, New Delhi. He is a research fellow at the International Laboratory on World Order Studies and the New Regionalism, HSC University, Moscow, Russia. Alexei sir also works as a research fellow at the Institute of Oriental Studies of the Russian Academy of Sciences. His area of research revolves around India's foreign policy, Russia-India and India-US relation, as well as the overall geopolitics of South Asia and the Indo-Pacific. I extend my warm welcome to Dr. Alexei Zakharov, sir. Over to you, sir.
Very good morning. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah. First of all, please let me extend a big thank you to the organizers for this very timely and topical conference. So, Professor Kanchan Fulmali, Professor Chakraborty, Professor Deshmukhya, thanks a lot for inviting me. It's a big privilege for me to speak on this topic and to participate in the conference with this alongside with esteemed professors and experts. It's a big privilege for me. Thanks a lot. So my topic will be less topic focused, and I think it will be challenging for me to match the high level of presentation that was reached by the previous presentation by Professor Raka Arya. But I hope to provide an overview of how the agenda and functioning, and in some cases, a wide range of areas between two multilateral institutions, BRICS and G20, intersect, and on which topics these two groupings converge and diverge. I think this topic is important, as many of you should know that BRICS is undergoing transformation, and this grouping, which consisted of 5 members, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is now on the way to expansion and to inclusion of new countries that should happen after January 2024. So to my mind, it's important to assess possible implications of this expansion and how it can affect both the functioning of BRICS grouping per se, and if it could also affect the deliberations at the level of G20. Because it's also important that 2023 was the year of India's presidency, and it will be taken up by other BRICS members, by other BRICS colleagues, Brazil and South Africa. So speaking about expansion, I think it's important to look at which countries would join the grouping in January 2024. At the previous summit in South Africa, in Johannesburg, it was decided that 6 new members, such as Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates, would join the BRICS 5. It is still a work in progress because some countries are seeing political transformations. Their domestic political developments lead to reconsideration of joining the grouping. It is the case of Argentina. That's why I decided to highlight this country with red color, because of the new president's decision, I think is tilting towards reneging on the joining process. So we will probably not see Argentina as a BRICS member in the near-term future, even though, again, I will not be surprised if this issue will be reconsidered one more time. So it's a matter of, again, political developments, and I think that it's also an important point for multilateral institutions that sometimes their development, their agenda, and the positions that countries take, they also depend on domestic politics and on the foreign policy courses that this or that government takes. Before speaking about the expansion and its implications, its wider implications, I think it's important to recall what is the focus of BRICS grouping, and how does the expansion, how can the expansion affect the grouping's functioning if all the countries that are invited would join BRICS in future. So BRICS, with time and with development of this multilateral, BRICS acquired a lot of different areas of discussion. Yeah, please, could you show us the next slide? Yes. There are so many areas that now BRICS covers issues from geopolitics to economics to culture. Of course, there are many people-to-people exchanges, and there are even exchanges in sports and other areas. So it's a very, very extended agenda, I would say. And sometimes something that observers point out, that BRICS lacks specific focus because it covers so many areas. But to my mind, there are four big pillars that should be mentioned with regard to the grouping. And these pillars have been the major drivers for the integration and for the mechanism going forward. These pillars are global governance, political and security issues, economic and financial issues, and the final pillar is about people-to-people exchanges in different areas. But here I decided to mention cultural and scientific exchanges particularly. So I think that these four directions are the major avenues for BRICS that have been driving this grouping forward and tying the countries together. So if we can move forward, I will speak more about the first pillar of global governance. It's been the most consequential, I would say, part of BRICS discussion since the emergence of grouping in mid-2000s. And I think that the countries were driven by the mutual intention to draw attention to the need for multilateral reforms, whether it refers to the particular reform of multilateral institutions or generally of getting more power for the developing countries, and probably address the asymmetry that existed between the Western-led institutions and the rising emerging economies that were, interested in taking the lead. So I think that at this particular moment in 2023, we can see that this process has reached a peak because over the last decade or so, these countries, the emerging economies, they have become more powerful. And if we look now at China and India, these countries have grown significantly. Their economic potential is now visible to all in the world. And all the projections by the leading financial institutions say that in the coming decades, these countries will be the leading economies. So BRICS is going from the a grouping of potentially of potential countries that will be leading the world to the reality where these countries are shaping the global agenda and are becoming very influential in terms of their economic weight at the global stage. And if we look through the BRICS statements, then we will always find that BRICS are calling for a greater representation of emerging nations, of comprehensive reform of the United Nations, including the Security Council, and also about reform of Bretton Woods institutions such as IMF and World Bank, where developing countries do not have leadership positions, and many developing countries, or the countries of Global South, if you want, they actually depend on the decisions that are made by these institutions. They should ask for new loans, expecting that they will meet the criteria that are set by these financial institutions. With this regard, BRICS is standing for more empowerment of the developing countries. And it's interesting also, particularly from the Russian point of view, that BRICS agree that many economic restrictions that have increased now as a result of geopolitical divisions, that they are not favorable for the world economy. They are not favorable for trade. They are not good for cooperation in particular areas such as agriculture, for instance. So at recent summit, BRICS also stand against sanctions, which is, I think, an important development. At the same time, the BRICS approach toward global governance raises a few pertinent questions, I would say. From one perspective, the rise of BRICS 5 has been seen as an indicator, as a manifestation of another step toward multipolarity. And something that I read from other experts and observers, they still see that the expansion can lead to more multipolarity, to a stronger voice by other developing nations, using the BRICS platform for stating their objectives, for stating their worldview. In this regard, probably the expansion can lead to more power and more demand of getting this power to the global South countries. But on the other side, I think that the expansion also shows the intention the intention by some BRICS countries to provide some alternative to the Western-led global order. And in this regard, I don't think that all the BRICS nations have a common approach and have a common vision of how this new platform should function, and whether it should be a non-Western platform or an anti-Western platform. And I think that this division is subtle. It's not so visible, but it is still there within BRICS. As, for instance, Russia, China, and potentially new member Iran have much more complex relationships, if not their own confrontation with the United States, for instance, while the other members are following a more balanced foreign policy approach, and they are not interested in antagonizing the West or the United States. So they would like to, of course, retain their identity, retain their position with regard to the reforms of multilateral institutions, with regard to global South empowerment. But at the same time, I would say they are against any steps that can run counter to the West. So some pertinent questions are there, and it's important to see how the narratives inside BRICS would change with the new members joining the organization. Probably one more question that I did not indicate on the website on this presentation is: will it be possible, and is it possible to achieve the pursued reform of international institutions? For instance, if we focus on the United Nations Security Council, is it possible to achieve the reform of this important body at a time of heightened great power competition, when we see that actually geopolitical divisions become a matter of discussion even at the forums which are not designed to discuss these questions. G20 under India's presidency was a case in point, and at BRICS these divisions are also visible, and even though BRICS has not been primarily focused on geopolitics or political issues in general, these questions start to make up an important part of agenda, and they also influence the decisions on other issues of, providing financial inclusion, for instance. So it's a pertinent question if BRICS are able to move forward on the reform on the, reshaping global governance at this particular time. And we also have to recall here that some of the BRICS members themselves, they are not actually allowing the developing countries in to the international organizations, like the case of the United Nations Security Council and the China's position with regard to potential India's membership. Whenever all over the world we can see that the different countries accept India's rise, and they accept that India fully deserves to be a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. China has a very reserved position and does not support this idea. So it's a matter of, there are many questions here and many factors at play. So probably it would require more time and more work to move forward on this particular issue. Moving forward to another pillar, which is political and security. I think that here we should also note that it's not part of BRICS' primary focus, as I already mentioned. But still many summits, and as BRICS has many different mechanisms, like the meetings of ministers of foreign affairs, even the meetings of national security advisors. So these meetings discuss particularly this area, which includes, on the one hand, geopolitical issues, regional conflicts, and global security threats, such as the threat of terrorism. And if we read documents by BRICS, it would seem that all the 5 members were standing united together vis-a-vis these challenges. But of course, if we look closer and if we go in details into the approaches by different member states, we will see that there are some differences, and I would say even divergences between them. Particularly, this is important with the BRICS expansion, as adding new geographies, according to my viewpoint, does not mean more consensus. It does not mean more unity in their visions. It is also a matter of importance, particularly against the 2 conflicts, the conflict in West Asia between Israel and Palestine, and in the military conflict in Ukraine between Russia and Ukraine, which on paper seem to reflect common approaches by BRICS members. When it comes to reality, the countries have different views, and there are some nuances of their approaches to these particular conflicts. It is also important to understand bilateral dynamics vis-a-vis the BRICS expansion. If previously some disagreements between India and China reflected in the ability by BRICS to come up with joint visions on some particular issues, I should not remind about India-China disagreements with regard to India's vision about China's BRI project and India-China territorial disputes. So it has become also a challenge for their working together at multilateral institutions, including BRICS. But there are also new members that have had quite difficult relationships, like Iran and Saudi Arabia. Even though they are on their way to normalization, there can be still some internal divisions and some different views between these 2 countries. So to my mind, it will be more difficult to reach consensus for an expanded version of BRICS, given that the all divisions are not overcome, and the new divisions are just yet to be visible. Moving forward to the economic pillar, I think that it covers too many areas, but I would limit my focus on the recent developments. I think that they are important in terms of seeing how BRICS is changing, how BRICS is taking up new areas, and where the BRICS members, particularly China and Russia, are driving the grouping forward. Because there has been a lot of focus on different alternative solutions to the Western-led financial mechanisms, and we can see that there is more agreement on moving to some new payment systems, to utilizing local currencies, and having more interaction between BRICS banking systems. It is partially driven by the increase in sanctions against Russia, and now Russia has no choice but to think about and implement new financial settlements. It has been also to some extent beneficial for India, because India has come up with internalization of Indian rupee as a potential mechanism of making trade. It is now approved by the RBI to make trade in Indian rupees in 18 countries, and this process is developing. But at the same time, it's a challenge for BRICS to come up with joint vision on how their transactions should be organized. Because at some point there was an idea to introduce a common BRICS currency, which is for the moment is under consideration. It's being studied, but I mean, some countries, I think that including India and Brazil, they have voiced their reservations because it's not clear if it's feasible or not. It's a matter of study for the economists if such currency would help actually BRICS to increase intra-BRICS trade, and if it's feasible for their economies. But the process is clear. The process is reflected in the groupings documents, and also it's reflected in practice, as we see that local currencies, particularly in case of Russia and China, it's the Chinese yuan. In some cases, I mean, if we take Russia and India, it is the Indian rupee. If we take India's trade with some other potential BRICS members like UAE, there were also cases of utilization of Indian rupee. Russia has also been utilizing the UAE dirham for some transactions. So BRICS members are exploring how to move away from the US dollar domination, even though I think that it's a long process. It's just a work in progress, and there is still much resistance from the businesses of BRICS countries, which of course are more adapted to utilizing the old mechanisms, to utilizing the US dollars. The new ones are still challenging, and there are many other apprehensions about that. Another aspect, if we can move forward with another slide. Yes, I think it's important to highlight the role of New Development Bank, which is often cited as the most successful achievement by the BRICS. It was launched in 2015, and since then it approved nearly 100 projects with total amount of more than $32 billion. I think that NDB showcased its significance during the COVID-19 pandemic, when it managed to mobilize about $10 billion for the emergency assistance to member countries in their fight against COVID-19. And it was a good case for the NDB as an institution to exist, and I mean, it managed to show that it's necessary for all the founding members. But in the recent years, it also increased its attractiveness, and beyond the 5 BRICS members who agreed to establish this institution, there are new countries that are taking interest in joining the NDB. 3 of them, Bangladesh, Egypt, and UAE, joined NDB recently in 2021, 2022. And there is also one more country, Uruguay, which is now in the process of application. So NDB covers different areas for financing projects in member states, such as transport infrastructure, clean energy, water and sanitation. It also provides and implements projects in social infrastructure and digital infrastructure, and also in terms of environmental protection. If we look at the next slide, we will see some recent projects which have been which have been approved and are about to be implemented with the financial help of the NDB institution. And it's interesting to see that even though Bangladesh, for instance, joined NDB recently, it has already received financial help of $300 million for the water supply project in Dhaka. NDB arguably at the moment is the most workable and probably efficient mechanism that exists under the BRICS framework. So I think that it's important, before I will speak about BRICS and G20 intersections, I think it's important to make some conclusions about the process of BRICS expansion, which is reflected at the next slide. Because as I've said, it's a sort of inflection point for BRICS as a grouping. It's an inflection point of whither BRICS would go in future. And there are some views that the expansion actually is an intention to revitalize the agenda, to add some fresh ideas and fresh impetus to the grouping. But to my mind, it's important to understand that despite some expectations and despite some apprehensions, BRICS will not turn into any anti-Western platform, because I think that BRICS is still comprised of many countries that are balancing between the West and between their intentions to reform the Western-led institutions. So I think that this balance can be taking place for a long time. And instead of focusing, for instance, what China and Russia try to do, instead of focusing on some anti-Western initiatives, BRICS should also and should instead pay more attention to promoting the interests of Global South. So the ideas that have been floating inside BRICS for many years should take a concrete shape. Otherwise, the impression will be that BRICS is all about discussion, but less about implementation. It's the first point. The second point is, of course, BRICS is, like many other institutions, it's about consensus-driven decision-making. And the more members there are in the grouping, the more challenging it may be to come up with joint solutions and with common visions. So to my mind, this process, when BRICS shifts from BRICS 5 to BRICS 11, will be more complicated. On the other side, it provides more opportunities for interaction, both at bilateral and multilateral level, and it also shows a stronger representation of developing countries across different continents. So probably with new members, BRICS will reflect the voice of global South in a more comprehensive manner. It is still not clear what are the principles of new members' inclusion. And I think that the admission principles have to be elaborated. But here we have to understand that apart from economic criteria that may be probably there, some people say that there should be sort of a demand of having a particular GDP level or a particular level of trade with BRICS nations for the new member to be invited. I think that there will be also geopolitical considerations in place. For instance, for Russia, it's important that the new member would not have any binding relationship with the United States. For India, as what I observed, it's important that the new member would not have any binding relationship with China. So when Pakistan, for instance, recently announced that it will apply for the BRICS membership, we should understand that it may be appealing for some BRICS members to have Pakistan inside, on board, but it's a non-starter for India, of course, and it will might further complicate the process of decision making. And of course, the further expansion, I think that it's a sort of a trial period now, and the further expansion would depend on the results of the current phase. So it remains to be seen what will be the future developments here. When it comes to comparing, before comparing G20 and BRICS, we should also understand that G20, with India's presidency and thanks to India's efforts, G20 has also expanded and acquired a new member, which is African Union. It consists of 55 states, and it's important to understand that there are some new BRICS members, new potential members like Egypt and Ethiopia, which will now be also part of G20 deliberations. So it means that BRICS more and more fits into G20 agenda. BRICS 5 was already there. And now if we look at BRICS 11, there are almost all 11 countries which will be part of G20 except for Iran and the United Arab Emirates. But the latter are often invited as a guest to G20 summits because UAE is an important country in terms of economic cooperation, particularly in the current situation where the world is increasingly disrupted. So I think that from geographical point of view, G20 and BRICS will have more and more similarity, particularly if the member states would decide to expand further. So when it comes to agenda, if we move on, we will see that the next slide, yes. We will see that G20 and BRICS have, on many accounts, similar objectives, but I would argue that they have different angles. Given that G20 unites all the leading economies of the world, including the Western economies, G20 is less about reforms, less about any radical steps, but more about a gradual period of transition. So at the G20 level, there is more and more understanding that developing nations require more power and require more representation. But G20 does not call for any immediate reform, does not mention the reform of Western-led financial institutions. So even if some phrases and some demands are similar, they are at G20 level are toned down and are framed much differently from BRICS. At the same time, there is quite a similar broad scope of topics for discussion, but I would say that G20 is more about economic cooperation, about financial mechanisms, and social and economic challenges that that world and the global community is facing. Because with time of development, BRICS agenda, as I already mentioned, has become too expanded and too vast. So to some extent, G20 is still more focused, even if it also covers a lot of different area. Yeah, as I mentioned, G20 is more elaborate on financial measures, whereas BRICS is a little bit too vague on how to achieve, for instance, digitalization of economies and what steps should be taken on this or that front. So sometimes BRICS statements, they do not reflect practical measures, whereas G20 in this regard is more elaborate. Also, G20 is generally steering clear of taking up any geopolitical issues. It does not discuss any regional conflicts, but probably this year and 2022 were the exceptions when the war in Ukraine has been a serious matter of divergence between the G20 members. And I would say that a large part of success of India's G20 presidency was the capability to reach consensus on the framing of 8 paragraphs about the war in Ukraine. It was a very daunting task by India's presidency to achieve any consensus because, as we know from the Indian officials, it took a long time. It took many efforts to reach consensus on the draft document of the Delhi Declaration, which eventually found agreement from all the sides, from all the participants of G20. But it's an exception because generally G20 is more focused on economic and financial issues, whereas BRICS, as I've already mentioned, is about many different topics. And if you look at BRICS documents and statements, it has always covered political and security aspects as well. So for BRICS, discussing and trying to achieve a common approach, a common statement on regional conflicts is a normal practice. At the same time, what is different in terms of BRICS approach is that it's more resolute on global institutions reform. So it is, on this account, it's calling for some particular steps. For instance, when BRICS discuss the reform of United Security Council, the grouping says that it should include more countries from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and in particular, the 3 members of BRICS, like India, Brazil, and South Africa. All of them are aspirants to join the leading global institutions. When BRICS discusses the probable alternative initiatives, alternate financial initiatives, like, again, utilization of new currencies or utilization of new payment mechanisms, it's going more into detail because it's probably a matter of concern for BRICS members that the old mechanisms are are becoming exposed to various risks like restrictions and sanctions. So on these accounts, G20 and BRICS are still quite different. What makes them actually important, and what actually explains why different developing countries take an interest in joining BRICS, and the others are taking interest in participating in G20 summits and hoping for the hosting countries to get invited, because the focus is different. At one multilateral forum, you can discuss the important issues along with Western and non-Western world, but at BRICS you can probably be more vocal about the concerns of the global South. Moving on to the end of my presentation, I think I have one or two more slides. What makes these two multilateral institutions similar? I think that taking into account the differences that I already mentioned, we should also acknowledge that they have common agenda. It means that it's actually possible to overcome this divide between the Western vision and the non-Western vision of the world order, and of the steps that should be taken to give more voice to global South. Both the G20 and BRICS are standing for a more representative global governance and about the reinvigorating of multilateralism. It's just a matter of some nuances that I've already mentioned that make their approaches different. Both of them call for reform of international financial institutions, though BRICS is, again, more specific and more focused on particular institutions, and it is more, I would say, elaborating how this should be achieved and what should be done. I think that both are, at least in terms of declarations, standing against terrorism and corruption, but of course it takes more patience and time if we look into every country's specific approach to this problem, then we will find, of course, some differences, which are always visible, which are often visible at the level of international institutions like the United Nations, for instance, when some particular issues of terrorism become a matter of division between this or that country. In terms of financial inclusion, I think that now both BRICS and G20 take up this issue, even though that G20 is more focused on digitalization of economy, while BRICS is more focused about some alternative mechanisms of payments and transactions and interbanking network. I think for both institutions, energy and food security are equally important, even though, again, I think the G20 has a very economic specific grouping, takes up this question in more detail, and at least during India's presidency, I think that these issues were discussed much more in detail than even previously, and even as compared to BRICS deliberations and discussions. I should not stop about women empowerment. We had a great presentation by Professor Raka Arya, but I find that actually BRICS has more to do on this topic, because BRICS is just having some initial steps with regard to discussion of how women can get more access to education, and how it's important to give more rights to women across the world. It is reflected in the BRICS documents. It is reflected during the BRICS meetings. There is a mechanism of, I think, BRICS women exchanges also. But to some extent, I think that at G20, this issue has been taken up stronger, has been, even if we look at the Delhi Declaration, it has been mentioned separately in a big chapter. So I think that BRICS has a lot to do on this account, and it's an important matter for consideration about BRICS' future agenda. And finally, climate action. I think that it's been in focus of both multilateral institutions, even though G20 has, I think, more leverage and more opportunity to take up this issue seriously, because it consists of some rich developed nations which are being called out actually, and which are being urged to spend more money to help the developing nations. And it's reflected in the Delhi Declaration that these nations have to do more to encourage the developing nations to make important steps in terms of energy transitions, and also implementing the responsibilities of their climate action approach. When it comes to BRICS, these countries are discussing this issue, but I would argue that without the representation of Western partners, Western countries in the grouping, it will be difficult to come up with any solutions. It will be difficult to make any concrete steps. That's why such mechanisms as Convention of Parties like COP exist, where all the countries of the world can meet and discuss the particular, specific, and concrete measures that should be done on this account. I think that's the end of my presentation. I would stop here. I will be happy to respond to questions. And I thank again for your attention and for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was a very well said presentation on BRICS, the members of BRICS. There are some questions put in the chat box. I'll read them out for you. So the first question, yeah. So the first question is, sir, can I ask the first question? Yeah, sir, can I ask the first question?
Yes, please. If you ask me, I'm ready.
Yeah. So the first question was, would you agree that the BRICS pillars are also foreseeing major volatility? What would be your suggestion for a concerted action?
Yeah, well, it's a very good and very interesting question. I would say that BRICS pillars are staying more or less stable, but the contents of dialogue, the contents of discussion are changing. So when it comes to global governance, now it has a renewed push for some new actions and for some new mechanisms. If we see the reform of multilateral financial institutions, now it has seen the new push, given that Russia, for instance, is feeling that it's been isolated and it needs new mechanisms to exist and to overcome the restrictions imposed against its economy. At the same time, it's difficult to come up with concerted action, because previously, when the situation was more favorable and when it was possible to make a joint roadmap, BRICS did not manage to come up with concrete steps, because the very same countries had different approaches to their pillar topics. So they did not do this in a calmer and more favorable atmosphere. And now it's more difficult to achieve, given that the world is increasingly divided, and the serious steps would also require more level of understanding between BRICS members, for instance, between Russia and the West, because without this understanding and without some level of cooperation, it will not possible to achieve any serious result when it comes to global problems, when it comes to global issues, when it comes to global institutions. Such serious steps require concerted action, not only from BRICS, but from a wider global community. And it's, as G20 has shown, it's sometimes very difficult to reach consensus, even on some specific and particular questions.
Yeah, thank you, sir. We welcome Rohit sir from University of Mumbai. He has to ask a question. Over to you, Rohit sir.
Yeah, thank you, madam.
Yeah.
Very excellent presentation. My question, very small, two questions. That in your presentation, you also thrown some light on the security concern of the BRICS countries. As presently, we are also looking the Russia's case and the threat perception to China. So, do you see in future the BRICS is also going to be a security organization or remain only a trade organization? And the second one, do you see any adverse implication on BRICS by becoming the India as a member of Quad? Thank you.
The second question was about India becoming a member of Quad.
So,
Did I get it right?
Will it have any adverse impact on the functioning of BRICS?
Yeah, okay. So with regard to the first question, I don't think so. I think that actually the core members of the BRICS grouping, like Russia, India, and China, they are already member of a security organization, which is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So they actually have an ability to discuss all the issues related to their security, particularly to security threats in Eurasia, at this level, at these organizations. So I would say that they don't need a separate mechanisms, and they don't need BRICS to transform into any security-focused organization. Even though, as I mentioned, security issues are there, and every year national security advisors, they discuss all the security threats emanating not from only Eurasian continent, but from all over the world. But I would say that it's not part of BRICS, and it's not part of BRICS vision, because from inception, it was focused on how actually emerging economies could help each other to grow, and how they could probably transform the international financial order so that it would be beneficial for their economies. So I think that economic focus is there, and it actually should be the key area of focus, because otherwise the attention of BRICS members will be too diluted, and it will be difficult to reach consensus. I've already mentioned about some differences between India and China. There are also differences between Russia and China as well. And it's reflected not only in BRICS, but at their participation at SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization as well. So I would say that there is no need in any further focus on security. With regard to the second question, I don't think so. I don't think that India's participation in Quad and the Quad evolution would anyhow affect the BRICS function. I think that these forums are in a way complementary. Of course, India has been doing well in terms of balancing between the two groupings, because the first one is often perceived as an anti-Chinese grouping, even though India argues that it's not the case. Whereas the BRICS is perceived as an anti-Western grouping, whereas some of its members continuously saying that it's also not the case. So it's a matter of perception, but it's a great achievement for Indian diplomacy that India is managing to be in both groupings at the same time. But I would say that in some areas, their agenda also intersects. So there is more and more focus in Quad about technological cooperation, for instance. And in BRICS, there is also more and more understanding that the countries should have more exchanges in terms of science and technology achievements, in terms of some joint projects. And I think that lately it has been the focus of BRICS functioning. So from just a general economic agenda or financial agenda, they are moving closer to discussing technological cooperation as well. Now, from the perception point of view, it seems that Quad is more dynamic. There is easier to reach consensus between member states. But I would say that I mean there is no exclusion between Quad and BRICS, and India's membership in either of these grouping will not affect their functioning.
Yes, thank you, sir. Sir, there's one more question. The BRICS expansion is also heavily weighed and simultaneously encounters disequilibrium among member countries. Do you feel this will result in internal hurdles?
Yeah, it's a challenging process. From what we know in public resources, the very process of expansion and now the decision about which country should be invited to the expanded version of BRICS was a matter of disagreement between member states. As I mentioned, from India's perspective, it's very important that the new members would not have binding relationship with China, and it's always a matter of apprehension that China may use the BRICS expansion for increasing its influence across the continents, and probably use BRICS for extending its geoeconomic ambitions across these continents. From other countries' perspective, there are also probably exists its own vision of which countries could be joining the BRICS members. If you follow the changes in Russian foreign policy, the Russian foreign policy concept of March 2023 is now officially dividing the world into friendly states and unfriendly states. So from the Russian perspective, it's also important that BRICS would consist of something that is believed to be a friendly state. So there will be internal hurdles in this process. I agree, it's a good question. And it's as I said, the further expansion would depend on whether this phase would show that it's an efficient and necessary mechanism. If not, then probably this process will be put on hold, and the renewed format will need to reconsider its future and to reconsider its agenda, because in a new environment, in an expanded version, it may be more difficult to reach consensus. So this disequilibrium that is addressed in the question, I think it's still there. And if I'm not mistaken, India and Brazil were from the very beginning, when the idea of the expanded BRICS appeared, they were quite careful and quite maybe even averse to this idea. Because previously, if we also remember, there was a concept of BRICS Plus. It was the concept of just inviting different members, different countries to the summits and having an expanded meeting during the BRICS summits to hear voices of other nations. Even at that point, it was a matter of disagreement which country should be invited, which set of countries should be invited to this or that summit, and each country utilized the opportunity to invite guests from either from its immediate neighborhood, for instance, or the guests which are believed to be close partners, allies, and friends to this or that country. Even at that point, it was a big challenge, because sometimes a friend to one country is not a friend to another one. So in this account, the expanded geography may pose a problem at some point. So it remains to be seen how the BRICS expansion will pan out in future.
Thank you, sir. One more last question before we sum up this session. How do you see the future of BRICS as a rivalry between India and China rising due to the border issue?
Well, it's a pressing question, actually. It's a pressing question because, as I've said on many accounts, even before the 2022 Galvan clash, BRICS was the platform where Indian and Chinese interests diverged, their approaches were different, and it was reflected in even in joint statements when India, for instance, was the only country which was against the Chinese BRI project for obvious reasons, because the China-Pakistan economic corridor violates India's sovereignty and it's a threat to India's national security. It's believed to be so. So even these points were a matter of disagreement between the two countries. In this regards, I mean, until and unless India and China manage to normalize their relationship, come back to normalcy, as they say in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I think that BRICS will see more challenges for the functioning and for coming up with solutions. Because if we, I mean, if we take also a matter of like BRICS as a platform for meetings, a platform for as an opportunity for India and China to meet, it has also played some role. It has also allowed, along with SCO, to have a meeting between Chinese and Indian officials at some important moments in their relationship. But that's not enough. That's not enough because it's clear that these bilateral divisions between India and China, they should be resolved at a bilateral level. So there is no other third party or multilateral institutions that can help, or that can come in as a mediatory force. So, but I mean, it's important because also, I mean, from the Russian perspective, since late 1990s, it was an idea of three countries, Russia, India, and China, working together to establish some stability and security in Eurasia. It was a relatively successful and regular mechanisms of trilateral meetings at the RIC, Russia, India, China format, which existed for almost, I guess, 17 years, actually, until 2020, until these Galvan clashes between India and China. And now we can see that this format ceased to exist. It's in a moribund state. There are no more interactions. So the difficult relationship between India and China reflected that one unilateral grouping stopped to exist, and the member states realized that it cannot be useful, it cannot be successful given the current state of bilateral relationship. With BRICS and other institutions with India and China participation, it's not the case, but it doesn't mean that these bilateral divergences do not reflect and will not reflect in their agenda as well.
Thank you, sir, for such detailed explanation. Summing up the session right now, sir, it was really great to hear about how countries are working with BRICS 5 and BRICS 11, how their political advancement are, helping them to join them. It's good to know about the new members that have joined BRICS. How do they help in the infrastructure, financial, and economic issues of different countries? As we make an end towards the sessions, once again, we would like to thank our resource persons for taking us through this fascinating journey of all countries' interconnectedness because of this G20. Thank you once again, Professor Dr. Raka Arya and Dr. Alexei Zakharov. Now I would like to move on to our next speaker, Dr. Ajay Behera. Dr. Ajay Darshan Behra is a professor and till recently was the officiating director of the M.M.A.J. Academy of International Studies, Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi. His primary areas of research interest are international relation theory, foreign policy, and security issue in South Asia. Additionally, he served as the coordinator of the Center for Pakistan Studies at the M.M.A.J. Academy of International Studies. He previously held the position of officiating director of the Center for Strategic and Regional Studies, University of Jammu, Jammu, assistant research professor at the Center for Policy Research, New Delhi, and a fellow at the Institute for Defense Study and Analysis, New Delhi. He was the recipient of the 1996 Korikara Award instituted by the Regional Center for Strategic Studies, Colombo. He has also been a visiting fellow at the Brookings Institution, Washington, D.C. from October 2001 to June 2002, and at the University of Illinois at Urban Champaign, USA from September 1997 to January 1998. He has contributed several research articles to edited volumes and journals in India and abroad, non-military dimensions of security, transnational security threats, confidence building and conflict resolution, ethnic conflict, insurgencies and terrorism and light weapons. He is the author of the book Violence, Terrorism and Human Security in South Asia and monograph The Politics of Violence and Development in South Asia. He has also co-edited Pakistan in a Changing Strategic Context. He has also been the editor of the AI's Journal of International Studies and a member of the editorial board of the Strategic Analysis. May I now request Dr. Ajay Darshan Behra to take over. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible. In case I'm
Yes,
not
sir, you
audible,
are.
just let me know. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I thank the Dahanukar College and Principal Professor Fulmali and the Department of Political Science, University of Bombay, for giving me this opportunity to speak in this important conference. I am going to be speaking on global transitions and reforming multilateralism to address contemporary challenges. This is more of reflection because I don't know whether, I'm very certain about many of the things that I'm going to speak about because the world is in serious flux. I do not know we really understand the structure of the international system today. It's evolving. But the challenges which are there, which have been there for some time, and that needs to be looked at particularly from a perspective which cannot isolate geopolitics from the focus of the seminar on multilateralism. Now, the reason why we are speaking about multilateralism is essentially because there are certain reasons to understand the downfall of multilateralism in the post-Cold War period. The current world order, which is essentially a post-Second World War order, the so-called liberal international order was something which was propped up by the West, essentially by the United States. And the institutions through which, multilateral institutions through which we still continue to work, are institutions which was created immediately after the Second World War. Now the world has significantly changed. Whether these multilateral institutions, reflect the new power structure in the international system is something that needs to be questioned. Further, after the end of the Cold War, there are many issues, global problems requiring, global attention, global solutions. Climate change is one of the most important issues, which is almost an existential issue. for all countries in the world. In the recent past, we also saw how the COVID-19 pandemic probably realized that the world is not geared enough or not prepared to deal with these kind of health emergencies. Economic issues continue to bedevil the world. There is serious problems of financial equality or the debt problem of the global south. And more in the recent past, I think the world is concerned about the war that is going on in Ukraine, Russia's war against Ukraine, the Israel-Palestine conflict. Further, many of the countries see or watch the rise of China with certain amount of apprehension. Despite whatever one wants to assume about China's role in the international system, whether whether China is going to be responsible or in the lead for an alternative world order, the problem still remains for the regional countries about China's territorial ambitions. And for many reasons, the rise of many powers in the international system have not created the kind of apprehension, even in the West, about Chinese rise. That is an issue which affects how the international system functions today. We've also seen the failure of multilateral institutions like the United Nations, despite having performed well in many areas. The United Nations continues to be incapacitated by its veto powers. The UN has not been able to fulfill many of its items on its agenda promises, like the Sustainable Development Goals. They cannot be met by 2030. There is no question of eliminating poverty by that kind of deadline. Now, why the world continues to have a great degree of faith on multilateralism? Because we're used to a certain kind of multilateralism, the post-Cold War order or the rules-based order of the post-Cold War period. In theory, it protected all states, or in theory, it allowed for sovereign equality of states in the international system. And now, it's not that this rules-based order was not violated, or some of the principles of the rules-based order was not violated by even the Western countries. But still, countries felt that this allowed space for them, or they could deal with the security problems within that rule-based order. And now, most of the countries talk about multilateralism. Even the West talks about multilateralism. China talks about multilateralism. But Chinese behavior is very different from what it espouses and its conduct. In many counts, in international forums or like the World Economic Forum, China does speak about multilateralism or a broad-based equal economic order. But in the region, it does not accept constraints on its actions. In some domains, it does not like to follow the international law of the sea, or does not really adhere to, and this is the experience of many of the regional countries, does not really adhere to the principle to not change borders by force. So the question of force still continues to be an important element in the international system, whether it's the war in Ukraine or the Israel-Palestine problem, or the recent experiences of India with China on the border clashes. But as I said, that multilateralism still binds all states by common rules, and that's one of the reasons that most countries in the international system, adhere or would want multilateralism to continue in a reformed way. So the issue is how to revitalize, modernize the rules-based international order, because the existing order, of course, does not reflect the current reality of the world. But we cannot gainsay that the current world order needs to be anchored in some kind of reformed multilateralism. But I think what one needs to do also is, have a realistic perspective of the structure in the international system, because one of the assumptions is that the world is moving towards multipolarity, which is going to be more reflective of multilateralism, or multipolarity demands multilateralism. But I think I need to raise few questions, and that is where I do not have clear answers, because the dynamic of the world is such, they're constantly changing or evolving. The assumption that we are moving towards a multipolar world is something that I question, because if the world is going to become multipolar, then I think many of our assumptions about multilateralism fall into place. But if the structure of the international system is not going to be really multipolar, and I have reasons to argue it's not going to be multipolar, because first, fundamentally, we have a conceptual problem here. When we say multipolar, we still assume polarity. I don't see how the world is actually going to be consisting of multiple poles. I still think the kind of polarity we saw during the Cold War period is something that we are not going to be witnessing in the future. To assume that the emerging powers in the international system will constitute poles, attracting smaller powers around them, is not what really we're moving towards. The reality probably is different. The reality is that the world is fragmented into larger and smaller blocks. The reality is that the emerging structure of the international system is not really going to be multipolar. It essentially might be a greater West versus China and Russia. We talked about the rise of China or also the emergence of a new Cold War between the United States and China, but I see the power disparity so significant that China on its own is not going to be able to balance the United States. But we might see the structure of the world in which there would be more powers aligned towards the United States, and Russia and China, China and Russia on the other side. So the idea is that, we would have preferred a multipolar world of multipolarity, which would have been an alternative to the bipolarity of the world. It could have allowed for a world governed by rules, allow for global partnerships with diverse actors. But that probably is not going to be the reality of the world. On this case, I cannot certainly say that this is the structure of the international system, but this is how it's emerging, because one has reasons to believe that the nature of power in the international system is still, kind of biased towards the West. There's significant differences in power between the United States and China and Russia. So the the alternative structures which China has been building, and BRICS is one of them. The Chinese efforts on BRI, which has attracted almost 149 members. The Asian Infrastructure Bank, which has 106 members, including European countries, UK, Canada, the New Development Bank. And China has also been increasingly playing a greater role in conflict resolution or involving in recent conflicts. Now, these structures, these regional structures, are projected to be alternatives to the G7, the IMF, and the World Bank. I mean, the IMF, World Bank, and the WTO are structures which were created in the post-Cold War period, essentially by the West, led by the United States. Now, will these become alternatives to the Western multilateral order, which continues to exist? Now, for countries like India and many other countries in the international system, the question is whether China's rise can it lead to a new world order. Now, from the Indian point of view, I think a few points over here that India has to essentially choose between a Western-led international order and order led by China. Now, for India, the Chinese challenge has only grown. I mean, not only India sees China as a competitor, but it also sees a threat from China. And what India has done is that while emphasizing on multilateralism, and one of them was the leadership of the presidency of the G20. But what it has done is, along with multilateralism, India is also following a strategy of minilaterals. Now, this minilateral is something that I want to focus a little on, because while we talk about multilateralism, we forget that actually there's significant movement happening in the international system, and how many countries actually see these minilaterals as a way forward rather than the bigger multilateral institutions in the international system. One of our leading strategic analysis, Raja Mohan, called these minilateral groups the nimble pragmatic coalitions, because they overcome the challenges of the paralysis of the multilateral institutions. Now, these are not formal alliances, but they provide a certain flexibility to the countries, and India, which is now increasingly becoming part of minilaterals, because it allows them to preserve the strategic autonomy, and even as it shifts into closer alignment to the West. So I would say that despite India's membership in the BRICS and the SCO, etc., I think Indian foreign policy is clearly seeing a shift towards the West, and using these minilaterals, which are not really formal military alliances, but these minilaterals, to a certain extent, from the Indian point of view, or for even many of the countries in Southeast Asia, are largely a response to China's rise and challenge to the regional balance of power. So the point that I was trying to make is, can we really isolate geopolitics from understanding multilateralism? What is this trend of minilaterals, meaning the membership of the Quad on the ITU, we have to put them in context to understand that these are allowing many countries to create networks and not really blocks, because it allows India to maintain its strategic autonomy. It is where it still can practice what it has done in the past. So while many consider non-alignment a dead issue, or non-alignment or our commitment to non-alignment has actually gone down, we see significant transitions happening in Indian foreign policy. A country which had been a champion of non-alignment, Asian unity in the past, today actually requires or feels the need for outside powers to balance China. Because again, we have to recognize that India is in no position to balance China or deal with the Chinese threat. It has come closer to the West because it shares material and security interests with the US in regard to China. So it may not share the same values, or many things, there's been a dilution of the values, shared values between the United States and India. But its security interests are really getting tied up to the West. So these minilaterals, like the Quad and the ITU, are allowing India to preserve or maintain its strategic autonomy and work with the United States to pursue its security interests, or United States or like-minded states to pursue its security interests. It still allows it to pursue an independent foreign policy, and that's the reason why it continues, or its ability to engage Russia and China on its own terms. I don't need to elaborate on that, because the world, how India has been able to benefit from the Ukraine war, how India has been able to still balance its relationship with Russia, and yet come closer to the West. It's essentially being able to do that because it's not tied down or bound by any security alliances. So these are really helping India to deal with the contemporary challenges. The world order, how it's going to evolve in the coming years is one important or fundamental question. And the question that we need to answer or reflect on is what kind of a multipolar world will emerge? Is it a multipolar world which will be led by the United States, or it will be led by China or the BRICS? One can still argue that the balance lies with the United States. For all the talk about the decline of the United States and the international system, the United States continues to be a preeminent power. We can still argue that it is, not a dominant power the way it was in the immediate post-World War period. That has certainly changed, which it's a recognition which the United States itself has. But if there is one country which still has the ability to rally around a majority of the world, it is still the United States. If there is one country which still is looked up, particularly by the Europeans, it's the United States. It does not mean that the United States can act and behave the way it has done in the past. the United States itself is cognizant of the changes in the power structure in the international system. The United States itself realizes that it cannot have the kind of unilateral streak which it had in the past. It needs to take together a large number of countries or states to go forward. It still believes and works together for a multilateral world order, or probably the recognition that multilateralism is something that the United States cannot discount, and that is the way forward for the kind of global challenges and problems we have. Despite some of the actions which the United States have taken in the past, whether it's to have got out of the Paris Climate Agreement or the withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. These can happen as a result of domestic politics of a country, which essentially happened during the period of the presidency of President Donald Trump. But the US, along with Europe, which the Europeans still look up for the leadership role of the United States. Now, what I'm saying is not something which is trying to project the United States. I'm essentially trying to understand the reality of the international system. The reality of the international system is that we are very far from any kind of an alternative structure to the existing multilateral world order. Can it be replaced by the efforts of the so-called non-Western countries, in which India is also a part? On that, I have serious reservations that maybe it can happen, but not necessarily in the short term. The United States still the power capacities of the United States far bigger. The question is, how does one make the United States more responsible in this? How does the United States itself reform its own policy, and how does the United States be responsible in restructuring the existing multilateral forums? The United Nations is an institution, despite all its weaknesses, requires reform. It does not reflect the power structure of the international system today. Now, if again I raise this point, if there is one country which is not in favor of restructuring the Security Council, it is China, and not the United States or the European countries. So Chinese have to walk the talk. If they want a multilateral world order, they also have to support many of these reforms, beginning with the reform of the Security Council. The IMF and World Bank, I think, also need to be restructured. The World Bank has to become more conscious about funding the gaps in finances for climate action that many of the global South countries face, is something that the World Bank can look into. The IMF has to be much more careful, cautious in the kind of funding, emergency funding it provides to many of the debt-ridden countries. Now, here, despite whatever we talk about, the IMF, the conditionalities, the structural adjustment programs that the IMF supports. But the fact is that most countries still go to the IMF in a time of crisis. There are no alternatives to the IMF. I mean, neither the National Development Bank has done it, neither China has been able to help out with these countries. Regional countries have helped. The IMF, despite whatever it, the difficulties it gives to these countries, still is almost the first resort for many of the countries. So it's not that these institutions, do not require reform. I mean, they require reform, and it's not that they have completely outlived their utility. They require significant reform, and that is where the emerging powers can put pressure, can bring about new changes with these existing institutions, existing multilateral institutions. The G20 is another multilateral institution which, interestingly, this is the only institution actually which has the membership, I'm not talking about the United Nations, of the Western powers and Russia and China. Whereas BRICS SCO does not have the West on board. So the G20 has a future compared to BRICS. That's my understanding. The G20 needs to be more representative. It is playing a leadership role in many of the issues which actually the United Nations had a lead, but today the members of G20 who were in a driving position to address issues of not only the economy but climate change, etc. So the G20 has a bigger role because I think it's probably the most inclusive of all the groupings that we are talking about. I'm not talking of the United Nations, but all other groupings. This is the most inclusive grouping, and this is the institution which probably has a future in terms of promoting multilateralism. So my final point is basically that the multilateralism in the current context, we will not be able to understand multilateralism unless we understand the geopolitics and the kind of structure of the international system that is emerging. The structure of the international system, in my understanding, some people have labeled it as complex multipolarity. Complex multipolarity because it is actually not reflective of multipolarity. It is still reflective of bipolar balance of power or two competitive geopolitical formations. That is what probably is going to happen. It is not that we are going to see a world which is becoming more and more inclusive. In fact, we are moving towards a world which is, in fact, going to be more divided than what it seems today. As Chinese power grows, we might see a much more divided world than a more inclusive world. So I think we cannot underestimate the Chinese rise or Chinese power. That will bring in new dynamics to our understanding of the existing international system. The structure of the international system could, change in significant ways, which one can only reflect at this point of time. I cannot categorically say that this is how it is going to happen. but we will have to deal with the issue of multilateralism as we also see the world moving in a certain direction. But there is no alternative to multilateralism. And it is in the interest of countries like India or the emerging powers actually to see the world moving towards more multilateralism, whether it is about the reforms of the existing multilateral institutions or new multilateral institutions taking place side by side along with this. Because I do not see in any way the existing liberal international order being significantly changed or being replaced by any other order, whether we want to say that this new order is going to be more liberalized than the existing world order. You can just put a question mark on that. In what ways we're going to be transforming the existing world order, or in what ways are we going to replace the existing world order with a new world order. So let me stop there and open to questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to some engagement on some of these thoughts that I have put across. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was a very good one. So there are some questions that have been asked. I'll just put it up to you. So the first question is, would you please expand the term minilateralism?
Okay. Minilaterals, see, the meaning of multilateralism is, more than 2-3 states. These minilaterals do not have expanded membership. Most of the minilaterals are also region-based. They are not, they're specific to regions. And if I talk about India, you talk about Quad, which is, about the Indo-Pacific, or you talk about ITU, I2U2, which is again about West Asia Gulf. The United States remains a global power, and that's the reason why the United States anyway has been behind many of the regional organizations. In the past, we can say, if you look at security arrangements or security treaties, whether it is Southeast Asia, whether it was CENTO or CETO, the United States was also a member of those treaties. And today in these minilaterals also, you continue to see, the United States as a member of this minilaterals, whether it's Quad or I2U2. So the minilaterals have a limited agenda. They do not bind these states down. And that's the reason why you don't have to be in an alliance structure. Meaning that, if you're part of NATO is not a minilateral, because NATO bounds you down to certain clear common agenda. But in the minilaterals, the specific agenda is either related to security, defense, to a certain extent, economic cooperation. The agenda does not include everything. The agenda is not something to change the world order, to deal with global problems. That is not the purpose of the minilaterals. The G20 is not a minilateral, because the agenda of the G20 is far significantly wider and almost addresses all issues which the United Nations was dealing in the past. So minilaterals allow these countries also to continue with an independent foreign policy, maintain the strategic autonomy. And India has been doing that, because even while India is a member of the Quad, it's still a member of the SCO, it's still a member of the BRICS. But it's very clear that the Quad is basically to check Chinese power. I mean, one can say whatever one wants to say about the Quad, but the reality is essentially about checking Chinese power. So, but at the same time, it is not constrained India to align with the West or align with the United States. It still allows India to deal with the Russians, to deal with the Chinese on its own terms, on its own interests. So these are the minilaterals which are increasingly growing. It's not only these countries. I mean, Japan and South Korea have a minilateral. Some of the European countries have their own minilaterals, like the Nordic countries. So that is a reality of the world. So while we're talking about multilateralism, the reason why I wanted to focus on minilaterals is that if we do not talk about the minilaterals, we will get a very, as if everything is fine in the world, all we have to do is multilateralism. The solution to the world's problem is through multilateralism. That would be essentially bypassing a significantly new development in international relations. I mean, these were not groupings which existed earlier. These are groupings which are nothing compared, because they're not security alliances. We are used to security alliances. I mean, what we saw in the past was CETO, CENTO, etc. These are not like those security alliances. And therefore, they're new, and we need to factor them into our understanding. Otherwise, we'll be completely missing out on some very important developments which are going forward. And as I see, I think we are going to be having more and more minilaterals. And that is the reason why I think it'll be like a little premature to ignore the role that they're going to be playing in the future. I hope that explains what are these minilaterals.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sir, there's one more question. Would you have an opinion that geopolitical factors will underpin global growth rate and growth rates of countries, thereby throwing forecasts off gear?
Pardon, I didn't get the last part. Therefore,
Yeah, so thereby, so what's your opinion on geopolitical factors that will underpin global growth rate and growth rates of countries, thereby throwing forecasts off gear?
Sorry, forecast of?
Off gear, GAR.
Throwing the forecast off gear.
Yes.
Okay, I got it. I'm sorry.
Bringing about an imbalance.
Yeah, basically what you're saying is, I mean, the projections will not be as per the projections, they will be offset. Okay. There is every possibility, I mean, when these forecasts are made, they're made on the basis of, existing reality, and in which, there's no major event which changes things, which can impact on the international system in a significant way. We've seen some of those, and I think both the pandemic and the Ukraine war, I think, have completely changed a lot of these predictions. Both the COVID and the Ukraine war have significantly impacted many of the small countries. I think some of the major countries or emerging powers or the bigger economies may not have been affected so much, but the small countries have really been hurt as food prices have gone up, energy prices have gone up, because Russia and Ukraine both are important to supplying food and energy. Russia continues to be the biggest gas exporter. So we saw a lot of crises around our neighborhood. I mean, Sri Lanka, the economic crisis of Sri Lanka was essentially due to the Ukraine war. The economy, which was probably the best economy in South Asia, not in terms of the GDP, but in terms of per capita GDP, and the way, I mean, they have been able to tackle the poverty levels, etc., etc. And just because of this war, they had a serious food crisis, tourism disruption in the tourism sector. A country which depended on tourism from Ukraine. So there is every possibility, and that is why international relations is so dynamic that tomorrow it can change. Any projections can change as a result of any calamitous development. Climate change is one issue which can again cause a lot of problems. For instance, again in our neighborhood, Pakistan, which is going through an economic crisis, was deeply hurt by the floods in that country. Country which also had to import food, and the price rise as a result of the Ukraine war created problem for them. So climate can be an issue. There can be many other issues. So the projections, forecasts that we do, whether it is about the future rise of China and India. I mean, a lot of these risk analysis groupings who project, the kind of GDPs in China and India are going to have in the future. By 2070, I think McKinsey has projected that India will become the second biggest economy in the world after China. Now, those projections are subject to, they're conditioned by what would happen in the meantime. And that is the reason why I think one of the purposes behind multilateralism is to provide stability in the international system. Now, the post Second World War multilateral institutions fundamentally, I mean, restructured Europe. The IMF, World Bank, which is essentially created for the part of the Marshall Plan in Europe, and the miracle it did for Europe. Europe was completely devastated in the Second World War, and within 10 years, I mean, you saw the rise of Europe, and today you see the Europeans have moved beyond, towards European Union. So those institutions, the multilateral institutions, were supposed to provide that kind of stability, and they still can do that. But then it does not mean that they have played the same role for everyone in the national system. For the weaker states in the national system, the third world countries, or what we're calling as the global south today. So the world can change anytime, and the reasons why actually talking quite a bit about multilateralism today. It's not because just that India was the president of the G20, but why the world is talking more about multilateralism is essentially because the worries about these changes. Now, to deal with these changes, the world of most of the major states of the international system believe that the stability in the international system will only come through multilateralism. That is the reason why the emphasis is on multilateralism. So on that point about focus can change anytime, and we have seen as to how these focus have changed with some of the developments in the recent past.
Yes, thank you, sir. One last question. Recently, Narayan Murthy spoke of India should learn from China as it is an economy 6 times higher than India. How do you look at that?
Well, I also believe that there is a lot to learn from China. Let us not undermine the Chinese rise and growth. What it has been able to do in terms of the economic transformation. We have a lot to learn from them. But where I would disagree, I mean, I do not know if Mr. Narayan Murthy said anything beyond that, that we don't share the same worldview with China. I think that is where I will disagree, that we can learn a lot from China in terms of how they have managed to uplift so many people out of poverty. But I think besides that, I don't think so. We share the same worldview. We do not share the same political system. We do not share the same values with China. So unless and until we can keep our values aside, and one of the things about these minilaterals that I was talking about is that we do not have to share values. That in the minilaterals also, this is the contemporary reality. Even when it comes to the United States, I see that we also with the United States, there is a weakening of our values. I don't think so. The Americans and the Europeans see India, Indian democracy in the way it used to earlier. Even then, it does not stop them from dealing with India. Similarly, I don't see we have anything common in terms of values with China, whether it is about their political system, whether the Chinese way it still deals with the border issue, the Chinese unpredictability about using force. I still don't know what was the reason for Galwan and Doklam. In what ways, the reason to use force? I mean, the India-China border issue is something which has been there for a long time. We can still continue to talk about it, but still, it's not clear as to why those two episodes happen. So we should not undermine anyone or underestimate anyone in the international system. Do not underestimate China. Do not underestimate Pakistan. There are things to learn even from these countries. But I have my doubts whether we will share, a lot of things with them. But in international relations, that is not primary. And as it is as the world moves on, trying to find new arrangements in the international system, the states in the international system, able to find new arrangements to deal with the security challenges, problems, to deal with the economic challenges, problems. We will, deal with many countries. So India will continue to deal with China. India will continue to deal with Russia, because they still have importance for us in the way we have practiced our foreign policy, which cannot be subservient to any other power in the international system. I hope that kind of reflects a little on Mr. Nayarmurthy's maybe just one statement.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Somnath, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Mansi. Thank you so much, sir, for a very profound orientation, which is certainly added to the value and of the objective of the program of the various aspects of G20. And thank you equally for this incisive response to question and answer session. And to summarize your session, you have focused on the world order, which is in a state of flux, and with special reference to multilateralism, mini-lateralism, and the growing apprehension that you have towards the rise of China and the new world order, likely world order, which is taking over. So it has been a very comprehensive lecture, and we're really grateful that you've spared time and have been with us. So thank you so much, Professor Dr. Bera. And I also take the opportunity to thank Professor Dr. Raka Arya for being there with us all through, and Professor Dr. Alexis Zakharov. Now, thank you so much. And now I declare the first session to be over, and we'll be break for lunch and presentation after that, and we'll be joining at around 2 o'clock with the presentation, and 4 o'clock for well-being. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thanks to the other speakers who I listened to.
Thank you, Ajay sir. Thank you, Raka madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we leave now, Somnath?
Yeah, that's what I'm just figuring out with the technical element. Yes, Anil? We can just a minute.